presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Detroit.
Tigers baseball on Fox Sports Detroit is presented by
Bell Tire.
Daniel Norris trying to get the Tigers back on track tonight. Gorgeous night for baseball here in Houston. The roof is open. We're at Minute Maid Park, and it's Game 3 in this 4-game series featuring the Tigers and the Houston Astros. Hi again, everyone, and welcome to Tigers Baseball. Mario and Pemba alongside Rod Allen. Glad to have you with us for Game 3 in this series. It has not gone so good so far for the Tigers. Only 5 hits, Rod, in the first 2 games, but you got to tip your cap sometimes, and this Houston pitching staff has been lights out.
And the guy they got going today, Charlie Morton, he's no slouch either. He's averaging 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. But the Tigers, from an offensive standpoint, they have to make some adjustments. They have to lay off the high fastball today. They have to get the ball over the heart of the plate. They have to have unselfish at-bats and try to muster a few runs tonight.
All right, Daniel Norris will take them out for the Tigers. We know it's been kind of up and down for Daniel so far this year. The talent is there. He just needs to find some consistency.
I think Daniel Norris is very close to taking that next step, and he really needs to take that next step here tonight against one of your better offenses in all of baseball. When Daniel Norris is right, he's got a fastball that gets up to 96 miles an hour. He works very effectively at the top of the zone because he's got a high spin rate on the fastball, and when he's throwing it over the plate, it makes this breaking ball that much more devastating. Last couple of starts, he's thrown a lot more curveballs, a lot more sliders, very few changeups, but I just like his mound presence, and I just hope that he goes out there and he's able to pitch a clean game. Usually for Daniel, it's that one bad inning where he walks a few, gives up a few hits, and he becomes unrattled.
Always fun to play these Astros because it pits a couple of teams that have 2 really good players, both from Venezuela. Our own Miguel Cabrera and Jose Altuve of the Astros. These 2 are 2 of the best, even though they're very different players.
You know, we boast them as Venezuelans' best, but these guys are clearly 2 of the best in the major leagues. When you look at where these guys rank, for the better part of the last 6 years, Altuve with the batting average, of course, Miggy, slight edge there. You talk about the hits, Altuve there, and Miggy with a 4-hit game. So 2 very special players that are awfully fun to watch. Neither has really gotten loose in this series because of the pitching, but they're always a topic of conversation.
All right, Game 3 in this series just minutes away. After a short break, we'll send you back to the Call Sam Studios. Check in with John Keating. Coming up here tonight, though, the Tigers got one mission. Let's get the bats going, wake them up. They've had only 5 hits so far in this series. Tigers Stros, Game 3, coming up next. On Fox Sports Detroit is brought to you by Comerica Bank, a part of Detroit and the community since 1849. And by Ram. Test drive a Ram truck at the Ram Memorial Day sales event going on now. Back here in Houston, where the Tigers and Astros are getting together here for Game 3 in the series. The roof is open here tonight for the first time in the series. Gorgeous day in Houston this afternoon, and certainly a different feel when the roof is open. Here is the starting lineup for the Tigers tonight, presented by the Southeast Michigan Ford dealers. And for the Tigers, it'll be Kinsler, Avila, and Miguel Cabrera in the top 3 spots. Vimart, the DH. Upton is in left. Matuk is in center. You've got Romine, Collins, and Iglesias, the bottom 3. And they are facing the right-handed offerings of Charlie Morton, who is presented by Jeff Glover and Associates Realtors.
And Charlie has posted big strikeout numbers in his last 5 outings. 40 strikeouts in 29 2/3. He gets it done with a power fastball that gets into the mid to upper 90s. He's got an outstanding weapon, which is a curveball that he's been able to shut left-handers down with all season long. Let's take a look at the Houston Astros starting defense. Is brought to you by Tim Hortons. Left to right, they've got Aoki with 5 assists from the left field position. His first start of the series. Marisnick in center. George Springer slides to right. Gonzalez Altuve up the middle. Bregman, Gurriel on the corners. And Evan Gattis is back behind the dish tonight.
All right, here we go. Charlie Morton to the hill. Ian Kinsler to the plate. And we are ready for baseball here tonight. The Tigers are ready to bust out offensively. 1 hit in Game 1, just 4 hits in Game 2. But tonight is a different night. Kinsler batting .235, standing in. Morton goes to work, and the first pitch of tonight's ball game is a strike called on the inside part of the plate.
And Morton will throw his fastball inside aggressively to a lot of the right-handed batters. And we talked about the velocity. The velocity gets up into the mid to upper 90s. His average fastball is 95.
33 years of age, a native of New Jersey, signed a 2-year deal in the offseason with the Astros, and has been slotted behind Keuchel and McCullers in their rotation. Kinsler looks at a strike on the outer edge.
And Charlie kind of just slings the baseball up there. He's 6'5", about 220 pounds, so he's got that long wingspan. He just kind of slings that ball up there in the mid-90s.
Bouncing ball third base side. Routine there for Bregman. And 1 gone.
Here's the pitch usage for Charlie Morton. That sinker ball about 52%. You can see 26% with that curveball. He struck out 32 left-handed batters this year. The majority of those have come on the curveball. He also features a cutter and an occasional splitter.
Not surprising, he got a ground ball from Kinsler. He gets a lot of ground balls. Alex Avila in the 2 slot. Nicholas Castellanos is getting tonight off and tomorrow night off. So Avila slots in at number 2, and he buckles out of the way. 1 ball, no strikes.
Tigers have yet to score a run in this series against the 2 starters of the Houston Astros. That would be Brad Peacock a couple of nights ago and Lance McCullers last night. Not a run against their starters.
Tigers finally got a couple of runs in the 7th off the bullpen last night. It had been a long drought. Infield playing to pull on Avila, and now time is called by Alex. Well, the last 25 innings, Rod, slim pickings.
Not pretty. And you look up and down the lineup. I mean, everybody's over. Whether it be Miggy, whether it be Avila, whether it be Jay Up. A lot of guys just not getting it done right now. A lot of guys that you know will get it done eventually.
They have not had too many at-bats with men in scoring position, but 0 for 9 in those cases. And Avila takes way outside. This is part of the reason why Brad likes Avila in the 2 spot. His on-base percentage is way up there.
And he's got some pop in his bat. He can get you on the board early. And he's having a great year. Great start to the 2017 season for Alexander.
There's the ball outside and low. It just missed, and Morton wanted that one. Avila thought it even was a strike. 1 on, 1 out. Field conditions tonight are presented by Ace Hardware and the Scotts Company, and with the roof open, It is 82 degrees here at game time and clear.
It was a beautiful night. It was a gorgeous day.
Had a lot of rain here the last couple of days, but not so tonight. The Astros, as the summer wears on, they usually don't keep the roof open. It gets too hot here. But in April and May, they'll have some dates. Tonight is one of them, as Cabrera looks at a strike 0-1.
So far, all fastballs thrown by Charlie Morton. He's thrown 9 pitches. All 9 pitches have been heaters.
Cabrera went for 5 in the series. There's a line drive to right, base hit. He went the other way. Avila will go to second, and the Tigers now have 2 men on.
It's a nice job of hitting by Miguel Cabrera, not trying to pull that mid-90s fastball by Morton, but simply keeping the hands close to the body, which gets the barrel of the bat right in the strike zone, and he whistles that ball the opposite way. As a matter of fact, if you look at Mickey's hit chart this year, the majority of his hits have gone to right field.
Classic Cabrera there. So the Tigers now with a scoring chance early in this game. That is something we have not been able to say each of the first 2 nights.
More than likely, Victor Martinez will see a curveball or 2 from Morton. There it is.
In there for strike 1 in the outside corner.
That has been an outstanding pitch for him against left-handed bats this year. The majority of his strikeouts, as a matter of fact, have come against left-handed bats.
We saw a really good curveball last night in McCullers, didn't we?
It's one of the best in the sport, if not the best right-handed curveball in baseball. I think Clayton Kershaw probably has the best left-handed curveball, but Lance McCullers, who we saw last night, has the best right-handed curveball.
There's McCullers, who pitched the Astros to a win last night. 5 innings, 5 punch-outs. And a ball inside. Run the count to 2-1 now on Martinez.
After Morton goes down a couple of times and you happen to lay off the breaking ball, he will simply go upstairs with that riding fastball in the mid-90s, which a lot of guys have had a difficult time of laying off this year as well.
That fastball this year of Morton's has touched 96, 97.
And last year he was 93, 94, so he's gained a couple of hours at the tender age of 33.
Not so tender in baseball terms. Here's the 2-1.
Ooh-wee. Man, nasty.
2-2.
They got a lot of guys with a lot of signature pitches. And Morton's got that curveball and that mid-90s fastball. It's his 2 pitches, his 2 weapons. They got a lot of guys with lots of tools in their toolbox.
Morton in search of the ground ball here to get him out of the inning.
You got a toolbox at home?
I do.
You use it?
No.
I don't use mine either. My wife does, though.
It's just for show in my garage, in case some guys come over and say, "Look at my tools, guys."
You probably got one of the big fancy ones in there, like you do it so.
Oh man, I got like saws and everything, like I really use them. 2-2 on Martinez.
Bless her heart, she gets it done.
Upton waiting on deck. VMAR 327 in the month of May.
Good arms in the outfield, so it's going to be challenging for Dave Clark to send Avila home on a base hit.
One hopper to second, Altuve to second one, and the relay is in time. Double play. Exactly what Morton wanted. Tigers threaten, do not score. Top of the first, here come the Astros now facing Daniel Norris, presented tonight by Family Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
I know Daniel wants to be a little bit more efficient than he was his last time out when he used 106 pitches to get to 5 2/3. Daniel's got the power fastball, the really good curveball. He's got a slider and a changeup. He'll need to be great tonight against Houston.
George Springer will get things started here for the Astros. Springer is 0 for 6 in the series.
Go back a little further than that, and Springer in his last 5 games is 1 for 18 with 9 strikeouts. So he's been swinging and missing quite a bit.
Norris goes to work. First one is inside to Springer. I know both you and I have noticed this, but he really does at times have a huge swing, a very violent swing.
Especially for a leadoff hitter. He does hit a lot of home runs, 9 home runs in that leadoff spot already for Springer. But once he learns to cut down a little bit, his OPS will go up.
There's a C9 single the other way. Leadoff man aboard. Here's the rest of the lineup for the Astros, presented by the Metro Detroit Chevy dealers. You saw Springer. He'll be followed by Marwin Gonzalez. Correa again is out tonight. He is ill. Altuve at second. Gaddis, Beltran, and Gurriel in the middle. Bregman is hitting 7th, and Aoki getting his first start of the series, and Marisnik. Here is Marwin Gonzalez. He's been all over the place in their lineup, batting in the 2 spot tonight.
He plays all over the field as well for his Houston Astros.
Marwin is 3 for 8 in the series so far. They're keeping an eye on Springer, who does not have a steal yet this year. I'm not sure I remember Gonzalez wearing a face guard, do you?
Well, this might be his first at-bat that we've seen him in the series against a left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, good point.
And it must be something that he wears while batting right-handed. Obviously, he must have been hit in the face at some point in time.
High pop-up, sailing foul. Down the line, out of play. Springer down there at first base stole 16 bags a couple of years ago. He can run. He just hasn't stolen yet this year. Gonzalez has been on base in 17 consecutive games that he has started for the Astros. And he looks at a ball.
Good pitch, good slider, and a good take by Gonzalez. And Daniel Norris in his last couple of starts, one of those caught by Avila, one caught by McCann. His curveball usage went way up. It was a very good pitch for him in his last 2 outings. He'll need it today against a lot of these right-handers that A.J. Hinch has ran at him.
Daniel's last win was on May 1st when he beat the Indians, but his last 3 starts combined an ERA over 6.
Yep.
And hopefully that'll change tonight against a good Houston team. A.J. Hinch has watched his ball club scrap out a couple of wins so far.
8 of the 9 batters in the lineup tonight, and will go up there right-handed against Daniel.
Two and one on Marwin Gonzalez. Leadoff single by Springer. Two and two.
Here's the pitch usage so far this year for Daniel. And keep in mind the curveball percentage just went up quite a bit the last couple of outings. Got that 4-seam fastball, and that's 57% of the time. The slider 24% of the time. That curveball 8%, and that's really up only because of the last 2 outings.
Norris ready with the 2-2. Fouled off, and Avila could not hold on to it. And he got dinged up on that play as well. You talk about the added curveballs for Norris and how that rod could be a weapon for him. And I assume it's incumbent on the catcher to call that pitch a little bit more. Yet a lot of that, I think, depends on how comfortable he was throwing it in the bullpen in his warm-ups.
Absolutely. And sometimes you will have a pitch in the bullpen that you feel really comfortable with, and you always want to take that to the mound. And apparently that curveball has been a great pitch for him, but I think Brad got in the ear of Avila and also McCann and basically told both guys he needs to throw that curveball a little bit more. It's a very good pitch when he's able to execute it. And something else for Daniel, when he's able to slow down and throw that curveball, because it's a pitch you have to think about. It's a field pitch. His fastballs are much better because the body slows down. He's able to get the ball down in the strike zone when he's thinking and slowing down on the mound.
Now again the 2-2, and it's hit foul on a line to third base.
The Houston Astros trying to do something here tonight against Daniel that very seldom, if any, does he ever allow the opposition to do, and that's score a first inning run. He usually gets off to a fantastic start, but they do have a runner on first base. Well, there you go. Last 22 starts, no first inning runs. Let's keep it going.
And you may think, well, what's the big deal? I mean, it's only 1 of 9 innings, but it does set the tone for the game. And Gonzalez hammers another one. This one will be rubbed foul into the seats.
And Daniel might want to go with something else other than that fastball in the mid-90s, because the way that Gonzalez has been swinging the bat all season long, he might just hit it out of here.
You know, Gonzalez on Sunday against the Indians had a 13-pitch at bat in the 9th inning of their game, and it resulted in a home run.
Oh my goodness. Check out those people over there, man. They got the best seat in the house. Well, standing room only, though. You think they pay for them to go up there?
Probably not.
That's pretty cool.
It'll dive low, and the count fills now 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Well, I don't know what A.J. Hinch will do here in this situation with Springer on first base and a 3-2 count. Probably too risky to run, but you never know about Houston, man. They're an aggressive baseball team, and that's the way they play. They try to put pressure on the defense.
Leadoff single by Springer. Runner holds, and he walked him inside. Morris missing up and in, and now 2 men on, nobody out.
The Tigers starting defense is brought to you by Michigan Office of Highway Safety and Planning. Andrew Romine is getting the start at third base today. Nicholas Castellanos getting a couple of mental days off after a couple of miscues last night. And Nick's also started to struggle with the bat a little bit, so it's Romine that will play that position.
Second appearance at first start. Romine will bring his glove wherever he is told to go on the diamond. 2 on, nobody out. Here is Jose Altuve.
Altuve with runners in scoring position, loves to swing at the first pitch. Very aggressive hitter.
It'll dive in for a strike.
He also grounds into a lot of double plays. That's exactly what Daniel Norris needs right here. He needs a ground ball off the bat of Altuve.
Altuve had an RBI double in game 1 in the series. His only hit so far. The Tigers, for the most part, have been able to handle him. Last night had his 8-game hitting streak come to an end.
Altuve's splits are ridiculous. His home and road splits. He kills the ball on the road. As a matter of fact, the best batting average in baseball away from Minute Maid Park, but he's not done as well here in their ballpark, at least in the first 6 weeks of the season. Nearly 200 points higher on the road.
Altuve with an early opportunity here in the first with 2 on, nobody out. And he pops this one up. Shallow right field. It'll be Collins coming in. Altuve retired, 1 gone. So they keep him quiet in the series. That's a good thing. Here's Evan Gattis. Certainly is a little bit of a different look to this lineup for the Astros when Carlos Correa is not in there. He is again not playing tonight. He is ill. He is at the ballpark if needed. Might be able to pinch hit. But Gattis is batting cleanup in the game tonight.
They don't have a lot of guys that have had much success against left-handed pitching this year from a batting average standpoint, and Gattis would be one of those. His batting average against lefties is just .222, but overall as a team they're hitting just .239 against southpaws.
Gattis takes ball one. You can tell by the body language there, Norris wanted that.
I think he thought he had that first pitch changeup over the plate to Altuve was a strike as well. James Hoy is the home plate umpire tonight.
Norris has slowed the pace considerably here after the single and the walk. He's facing the cleanup man Gattis, who last year belted 32 home runs. His strikeout numbers are down this year. His walk numbers are up. Big power hitter that gets over in the crouch. That's slapped out of play. Something you don't normally see, a guy that hit 32 home runs last year. He's up there looking a little bit like Pete Rose.
That's right. The key when you do start in a crouch like Gattis starts in, you have to stay down there, because if you come up out of that crouch, obviously your head changes as far as the eye level is concerned. You're not going to get a really good look at the baseball. And Ricky Henderson was great at staying down in his crouch. He was way down there, and he never came out of that crouch.
And Gattis' feet are spread apart as wide as possible.
Well, he doesn't stride at all because he's already out there as far as he can possibly go. All he's doing is looking to use his hands.
2-1 on Gattis. 1 for 3 in the series. .271 batting average on the year for Gattis.
And throw a fastball right at his hands.
Grounded foul. 2-2. Gattis has been on base in 21 consecutive starts. The Astros off to a tremendous start, 31 wins, which leads Major League Baseball. In fact, this is their best start in club history. Again, they chase Springer back.
In case you're wondering, George Springer in his career is 3 of 4 in steals of third base. So he will go, but not very likely unless you forget about him.
Sawed him off. Little roller back to the mound. And Norris will throw out Gattis. 2 gone with the runners advancing.
When a guy stands in the crouch, as Gattis does, and Mario pointed this out, and he's got his hands low, so just throw that fastball right in there at his hands. And he threw that fastball right at his hands, and there's no way he can get to it. That is a beautiful executed pitch by Daniel Norris.
That'll bring up Carlos Beltran with 2 outs. And 2 men in scoring position. Beltran 1 for 8 so far in the series. One of the most prolific switch hitters in the game. And many feel that he is on his way to the Hall of Fame. His numbers are certainly worthy. We'll see where they end up.
For people that are getting a chance to see Beltran in the twilight of his career, when he came up with the Kansas City Royals, this guy was a legitimate 5-tool player with speed and power, defense, arm strength. He hit for average, and he did that for the better part of a decade. He was one of the best all-around players in the game.
Here's the 0-1. Well, Beltran this year has a total of 4 home runs. One of them was hit against Bartolo Colon, which made it a 40-year-old homering against a 43-year-old.
That doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. But it's amazing the shape that you must stay in to be able to play this game at the age of 40 and beyond.
Bartolo's in great shape.
I was talking more about Beltran than Bartolo.
Oh, you were. Oh, my bad.
Here's the 1-1. Foul back 1-2. Now Beltran in his career, 546 doubles. He's got over 400 homers. Seems like a long time ago, and actually it was, that he was breaking in with the Royals as a rookie. Norris has him 1-2. Swing and a miss. He struck him out, and Daniel pitching out of the first inning jam. First strikeout of the ball game for Norris. To stay tuned to Tigers Live. Following the game, we select the Fox Sports Detroit Tigers player of the game, presented by McDonald's. Stop by for your breakfast favorites, now being served all day. Here is Justin Upton to get it started now against Charlie Morton. We go to the second, and Jay Up looks at a strike.
And Justin Upton has gotten quite a few curveballs lately, especially on first pitches. And that's something that we're starting to see more and more pitchers that start to do around baseball. And drop that curveball in there on his first pitch.
Followed that up with a fastball high, 1 ball and 1 strike.
Guess Brad needs a little energy.
A little snack. There's another bender that goes low and away. Well, Upton was your selection for pick the stick tonight, and I've got to admit, I think it's a really good choice, because I've got the feeling as well that he's about to get hot.
I mean, he's 0 for his last 12, and guys that are struggling, they tend to make some adjustments. I don't know if he was looking for a breaking ball there from Charlie Morton, but he took that fastball at 95 right down the middle. But it was kind of hard to pick the stick today.
Yeah.
Huh?
No JD, no Castellanos.
And everybody's scuffling, too.
That one just missed inside. 3-2.
Mikey Matuk got a pick today. Romine got a pick today. Usually the big boys get the picks. We done gave up on the big boys.
We gave up on the big boys, right, man? Give me Mikey. Give me Romine.
Mikey Matuk might have went second today.
Actually, I took him third, so Mikey's my guy. There's Matuk.
Matuk been balling now.
He has. Now again, Morton's 3-2. And he got him strike 3.
Ooh, 96.
Yeah. And that was legitimately a strike 2. Well, it's time for cricket, something to smile about. There hadn't been a whole lot in this series, but how about last night?
Well, Mikey Montuk got himself a breaking ball down in the strike zone from Phillies after Phillies had thrown a fastball right by him, and Mikey Montuk hit the ball out of the ballpark. The only 2 runs the Tigers have scored in the last 2 days here in Houston.
Second home run of the year for Montuk. Now, if you're a pitcher and you throw a ball right by a guy and come back with a breaking ball, why? I mean, what is the thinking behind that?
Overthinking is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that way.
Overthinking.
You just blew the fastball right by the guy.
And it wasn't close to catching up to it. And then you hit his bat with a breaking ball.
Mikey, 2 out of 7 in the series. He had the team's only hit 2 nights ago.
Every fastball this cat throws, man, is 95 miles an hour. Where do they get all these swing and miss guys from?
Well, here's the other thing about Morton that I wonder. Now, the Astros signed him to a 2-year deal this year, and this is 1 season after he made, what, 4 or 5 starts last year, after an injury to his hamstring. There's a ground ball stabbed at first by Gurriel, and Morton covers. So they were not afraid of the injury history of Charlie Morton, and all of a sudden his velocity goes up.
I think it's all about the arm. They love the arm. They love his curveball. They love the fact that he's striking out nearly 11 batters per 9 innings. Take a look at his whiff rate here. This season, 26% whiff rate. It went up quite a bit. Strikeouts per 9 are up, and not throwing as many ground balls this year because he's striking guys out.
Ball 1 slides low to Romine. 2 out, nobody on here in the second, no score. Playing to pull on Romine. It's always interesting to watch the Astros and how they play hitters because, as we know, Houston is one of the teams that is at the top of the analytics chart, and sometimes they will play a little differently than some other teams. There's a wave on this.
But this much we do know: in the last 4 years, they pretty much have shifted more than any team in baseball. Them and the Tampa Bay Rays.
95 again, but that time missing high.
It's not a straight 95. He slings it up there. It's got some late life on it.
Just foul outside of the bag at third. Well, in spring training, Charlie Morton was hitting 95, 96, 97, and was opening eyes. And Charlie was pretty honest. He said, you know what, it's only spring training. Let's see how I do once July, August, and September rolls around, if he's able to maintain the velocity. 3-2 the count stays. Tyler Collins waiting on deck. And a walk inside, ball 4. Good AB by Romine, the second walk of the game for Morton. Here's Tyler Collins.
And Romine will run. And there are 2 outs. And the Tigers have been able to do very little as far as mustering any kind of offense. You wonder if Brad will turn some guys loose here tonight, play a little bit more aggressively.
I think it's a valid point. When you're struggling as mightily as the Tigers have been offensively, sometimes it kind of forces your hand. Gaddis this year 3 out of 15 for 20%.
He threw out Tyler Collins a couple of nights ago, but it looked like TC had a good jump from first base, and Altuve was able to apply the tag to the helmet of Tyler, and he was initially called safe, and they overruled it.
Tigers had a walk and a single in the first, but Morton got the double play ball from Victor Martinez. One and 2 on Collins.
And once Charlie gives you that fastball and you miss it,
And now it's 2 strikes. He's simply going to go to that curveball, which has been a good weapon for him. He throws it quite a bit with 2 strikes. You can't look for it, because if you look for the curveball and he happens to throw you that 95-mile-per-hour fastball, you will not get the bat off your shoulders. But the curveball should still be in the back of your mind because he throws so many. Here it comes.
So basically what you say is, or what you're saying is that if you want to sit on that breaking ball, and you can, but it has to be early in the count.
Absolutely. Early in the count. He's been at 96 really with every pitch that he's thrown. So the data that we got on him before the contest was absolutely the truth.
Check it. Did he go? Did not.
Gonna get that curveball again.
Iglesias waiting on deck. Got it again. Got him strike 3. Second strikeout of the ball game for Charlie Morton. Tigers stranded 2-out walk. What a gorgeous night here in Houston tonight. Bottom of the second, Daniel Norris back to the mound. He was able to pitch out of a jam in the first, a single and a walk, 2 on, nobody out, but he got a fly ball, a grounder, and a strikeout. And Norris back at the hill now in the second. Yuli Gurriel. There's a strike called.
That's a good fastball there inside, and thrown by Daniel. And that's the main reason why he stands where he stands on the rubber, on the third base side. It's a lot easier for him to get that fastball inside against right-handed batters, and that breaking ball down toward the back foot of the right-handed batters, and by where he's standing.
Gurriel in the ball game last night homered. He's got 4 of them this year. It's a neat view right down the line. Here's the 2-1. Ground ball to third. Right at Romine. Handcuffed him, but he stayed with it. One away now. We check in with Johnny Kane.
All right, guys, we are taking you behind the scenes. We are behind the scoreboard in left field. Minute Maid Park, one of the few ballparks in Major League Baseball that still had a manual scoreboard for the out-of-towners. Obviously, we don't need the Detroit sign today since we are the featured guest today, but it's a 2-man crew. They're basically watching the computers throughout the course of this game, and anytime there's a score change from out of town, they grab one of these numbers here, and they run it on down the stairs and put it up on the board. I can tell you this. These guys are working hard throughout the course of the game, much like you, Mario and Rod.
All right, Johnny, thanks. Well, It's not quite the scoreboard at Fenway Park and the history there, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty clean back there where he was.
The one at Fenway, not so much.
Yeah.
2 balls and no strikes on Bregman. This ballpark has some unique features. Of course, the scoreboard out and left. We've talked about some of the changes in center field. The train here. There's a soft liner to left, a base hit. And Bregman is aboard with 1 out. Second hit tonight for the Astros. You know, this is one of the more underrated parks, I think, Bob. When people ask us, where's your favorite place to go in the league, I typically forget about Houston.
And especially tonight when the roof is open, it's absolutely beautiful.
There's the train up above the wall and left that will go off every time the Astros hit a homer.
Gorgeous ballpark.
Nori Aoki, in his first year with the Astros, digs in. Strike 1 on Aoki. Most of his career was spent in Japan before coming to the States, but still he is gaining on 2,000 hits for his career when you combined his hits stateside and in Japan. He needs 11 more. Whistled foul out of play. Certainly not the caliber of Ichiro Suzuki, but still pretty little player.
Absolutely. Can handle the bat. Pretty good in left field. He's got 5 assists already from that left field position.
Claimed off the waiver wire from Seattle. Runner goes on 0-2, missing high, throw down, tag, not in time. Stolen base for Bregman.
Generally speaking, 0-2 counts are not good counts to run in. But they were convinced that Daniel Norris was not going to throw over to first base, and Bregman, as soon as Daniel Norris picked up that right foot, he took off. So he guessed correctly, and really Avila had no play.
Just ahead of the tag by Iglesias. Why is an 0-2 count not a good count to run?
And because usually it's a fastball count, and it's usually a pitch where the pitcher can waste a fastball. Now, he can throw the ball up, which makes it very easy for the catcher to throw if you have a feeling the guy's going to run.
Now the 1-2. Good stop there by Avila, 2-2.
But very seldom do guys run an 0-2 counts for that very reason. You can pitch out. It's just too easy to get them out.
Avila back behind the dish tonight. Tigers have gotten good production out of Avila and McCann behind the plate. They've combined for some really good numbers. Of course, Alex has had a great year. Aoki waits on a 2-2. Slap foul again. Nori came into the ballgame 0 for his last 10. Daniel now is up to 35 pitches with only 1 out here in the second. Pickoff throw.
That is something that the Tigers have done a better job of this year. And that's making sure that when guys are on second base, they don't have the liberty of just stealing third. They've paid much more attention to those base runners. Guys are utilizing the spin move. And that comes directly from the manager, Brad Ausmus, and the pitching coach, Rich Doobie.
Bouncing ball back up the middle. Kinsler will surround it. And Aoki is out by a step. Bregman will go to third, and time for a game break now with John Keating. I don't know what's going on there at Twinkie Land, but they're playing some really good ball.
Well, I mean, what do they do at the trade deadline? If they are still in first place, would they dare still trade Ervin Santana? I mean, what would the fan base say?
Well, that's what I asked you last night. I mean, it's going to come to a point where if they keep winning, that's going to be a tough decision. There's a ball to Marisnick because, I mean, if you're being honest, you got to believe the Twins feel they don't have enough to win the championship this year. Now, do they have enough to get to the postseason? Don't know. I would say probably not, but yeah, it's a tough call.
I think everybody's consensus is that sooner or later they're going to come back to the pack a little bit. They're just not going to continue to perform the way they have. And teams like the Tigers, Kansas City's going to play better. And of course, Cleveland's already starting to play better, will overtake Minnesota, but not as of yet.
1 ball, 1 strike on Marisnick. 3 out of 4 with an RBI in last night's game. Swing and a miss.
This was supposed to be a retooling year for the Minnesota Twins. New general manager in Thad Levine. And everything that he was talking about in the offseason was trying to get younger, more athletic, controllable players like everybody else in baseball. Then all of a sudden you have Ervin Santana pitching like Cy Young.
Yeah, and Sano having a great year. Swing and a miss. Marisnick is dusted up in the zone, and that'll end the inning. No runs, a single, a steal, and a runner at third. And Norris with his second strikeout of the game. In Houston, no score. It'll be Iglesias leading it off for the Tigers. And he'll look at a strike on the outer edge, 0-1. Iggy, then Kinsler, and then Avila. Charlie Morton, a couple of strikeouts, a couple of walks in this game. Also has had a double play turn. Here's another bat the Tigers desperately need to get going. Iglesias has played tremendous defense this year, but batting .195 coming in. Here's the 1-1. 2-1 on Iggy. 0 for 3 in the series.
And Charlie Morton is 6 of 9 in first pitch strikes, the first time through the Tigers batting order. And a heavy dose of fastballs.
That's going to go down the third base line. They let it roll, and it's going to stay fair. An infield hit for Iglesias. Any way you can. A swinging bunt.
A two-seam fastball at the mid-90s that ran in on the hands of Iglesias that he got on the top of, and the ball went right out toward third base, and Iglesias couldn't have taken the ball and rolled it down the third baseline any perfectly with his hand had they allowed him to do that.
That'll bring up Ian Kinsler.
The numbers against Charlie Morton, they go up significantly the second time through the batting order, and they go way up the third time through. I don't think he'll be in there for the third time through, but this is the second time through right now.
Drilled toward left field. That ball is going to get down. It's going to go up against the wall. Iglesias coming to third. They will stop him there, and Kinsler has a double. And the Tigers are in business here in the third.
Ian Kinsler went up there looking for the first pitch fastball inside. That's what Charlie Morton did to him his first time up, and he whistled it. One hopper off the gate for a stand-up double.
So the Tigers are set up really well here in the third. 2 on, nobody out in the heart of the lineup coming up.
And here's those numbers on Morton. And his second time through the batting order, 286. Ian Kinsler starts that party off right.
Probably explains why Morton has thrown 100 pitches in only 3 of his 9 starts this year. Hasn't gone deep into games. Playing to pull on the infield.
Ideally, if you're Avila, you'll take a ground ball anywhere here, because if you do, that gets him here and that scores the run here. So you're not worried about a ground ball to second base in this situation, because you get 1 run in and you get the other guy to third base with just 1 out.
2-0. Avila had a walk in the first. .473 on base percentage coming into play today.
Putting up some real nice numbers. Going to get himself a good fastball to hit here too, should Morton throw him one. And obviously, if he throws you the breaking ball, you just simply take it if you're Avila. At least that should be your mindset.
Morton had 2 men on in the first inning, but got a double play. Tigers have an infield hit and a double to get things rolling here in the third.
Good pitch. Outstanding pitch. And Alex did exactly what you should do. You're looking for a fastball. You've worked hard to get yourself in that 2-0 count. If he throws you a curveball, okay, strike 1.
That'll get away and score a run. Wild pitch advancing both runners, and the Tigers take a 1-0 lead.
And breaking ball down that Evan Gattis couldn't block, couldn't keep in front of him.
Iglesias scores on the play. Meanwhile, 3-1 now on Avila. Kinsler taking third on the play as well. And Avila tried to hold up, couldn't do it. 3-2 on Alex.
If Alex doesn't get it done, they might just walk Miguel Cabrera to and set up a double play with all the ground balls that Morton throws. We'll see. First things first, he's got to deal with Avila.
Morton about to throw his 50th of the evening. It's funny, the Tigers have been struggling for 2 days. They get this rally started with an infield hit. And that'll bounce low, and that'll be ball 4. Second walk for Avila. Third of the game now. And it's time for the Bernstein advantage. Want to show you the hot cold zones for
One of the best hitters in the game.
And that 236 reading that you're looking at right there, that's up and in, and the 229 reading, that's blue, that's down and away. Everything else for the most part red, and Miguel kills the strike zone down the middle, down and in, right down the middle.
Hard hit ball to short. They should get 2 on this. They will, but a run will score. A rocket hit to the shortstop Gonzalez. Kinsler comes in to make it a 2-0 game. Base is empty now with 2 outs.
Second hard hit ball of the day for Miguel Cabrera. Tough luck there.
Here is Martinez. He knocked into a double play in his first at bat. Playing to pull on Victor. Breaking ball. Apparently caught the outside corner.
If you go all the way back to 2012, and Charlie Morton and also his teammate Dallas Keuchel have thrown more ground balls than anybody in baseball. I mean, these guys, their percentage, tons of ground balls. That's how he's gotten 2 double play balls already tonight.
You know what they used to call him in Pittsburgh?
What was that?
Ground Chuck.
Ground Chuck.
That's a really good nickname.
That's a good nickname for him. His percentage is way up.
Here's the 1-1. Pulled foul. 1-2.
Here's what we were talking about regarding these two. Since 2011, you have Keuchel and you also have Morton there, both guys. Trevor Cahill, Tyson Ross also on that list. Remember Trevor Cahill's sink piece when he first came into the league?
Man, was it good. One and 2 the count. So Morton has the ability to get the double play ball, but also the ability to throw it by him.
There's Dallas Keuchel. And nursing a pinched nerve right now. They put him on the 10-day disabled list here. I think he's only going to miss 1 start. He did some light throwing on the field today. They expect him to take his next turn in the rotation.
And he's bounced right into the shift, and Gonzalez will throw him out. Tigers, however, get 2 on the board as we go to the bottom of the 3rd. Brought to you by T-Mobile. Want to check in on the minor leagues for the Tigers. Christian Stewart at Double-A. Man, he has been going off. 13 home runs this year.
He went off last year as well.
Yeah, he's got some power. Bo Burrows really pitching well in A-ball for the Flying Tigers. And West Michigan, man, they are off to a really nice start.
They're balling. 30-14 so far.
Blaze Salter hitting .330 for the Whitecaps. Here is Springer to get things started. Tigers lead by 2 as we go to the bottom of the 3rd.
Huge inning here for Daniel Norris. Your team really has not had any leads in the series whatsoever. They've gotten you a couple of runs. You have to make sure that when you get back in the dugout, you still have the momentum on your side.
Springer, Gonzalez, and Altuve. Springer had a single back in the 1st. Now the 1-1.
Good pitch. Just missed. I like the fact that Daniels aggressively and going inside to these right-handers with his fastball and his breaking ball. And Avila's calling all these pitches because Daniel Norris does not shake off.
Two and 2. Springer played his college ball at UConn. In fact, the moment he got on campus, he just started hitting. He batted cleanup as a freshman on their baseball team. He used to do backflips on the field. He's that acrobatic.
He's a great athlete.
That'll get fouled down the right field line. And again,
that's where that net comes into play. I love that idea that they have that net there because that ball right there had a chance to hurt somebody as hard as it was hit in that direction. I mean, you can sit down and enjoy your food right there.
Here's the 2-2. Fouled away.
When you go to baseball games, do you like not sitting behind the net?
No, to be honest with you, I like sitting behind the net.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got good reflections and I played the game, but I do not like sitting that close when I'm not covered. Because look at them people right there. They're not even paying attention.
Nope. No, because Facebook's calling, Twitter's calling.
And they're not even watching the game.
Oh, what happened there? The glove comes off the hand of Avila. They're going to give Springer first base.
Alex is hurt too. It's going to be an error on the catcher, but his hand is really hurt.
That's not good.
Remember how much that used to happen to Alex when he was with the Tigers the first time around? Yeah, his glove used to get hit quite often. He's hurt though this time.
Ouch.
What kind of swing was that?
I don't know.
Goodness gracious. He didn't hit the glove, he hit the wrist.
Well, if he hit him square on the wrist, I think Alex would be in a tremendous amount of pain right now. That must have caught most of the glove. And you could tell Avila was none too happy that it happened. So Springer is at first base. I think we got Marvin Gonzalez.
It goes as an E2 for those of you that are scoring at home.
Astros have had a base runner in every inning so far. How many folks do you think at home are scoring? Do you think anybody scores at home anymore?
I don't know for sure, but I mean, with all the technology and computers, I'm sure some people have probably got their iPads out doing some scoring.
Gonzalez looks at a strike. There are programs now, and some broadcasters actually use them where there are score sheets. You can keep the score of the game via your laptop,
right,
or your tablet.
They try to make everything very easy these days.
Gone are the days of the old program, the pencil, and keeping score manually.
Just got a text message from
Keating.
Yeah, John Keating. He says he's keeping score, but he's not at the crib. He's in the Call Sam studio tonight.
He wants credit for it, but he's working. You've got to be keeping score, Keats. Well, I guess you don't, but he is. He's a pro.
Well, Keats gonna make sure he's on top of it at the end of the game for sure.
Gonzalez walked in his first at bat. And a toss back, Springer back in there.
I don't know what you got on the Houston Astros. We've seen them for 3 days now. I mean, are they as advertised there? Because we heard from a lot of people before we got here that this was the best team that most people had seen thus far.
I think they're legit, and one of the reasons why is you look at the best records this season is that bullpen. They've got 6 guys in that bullpen that strike out 10 or more per 9 innings.
Ain't that ridiculous?
That's just unheard of. And we have seen all of them in this series.
I was talking to the general manager yesterday, Jeff Luhnow, and I posed the question to him. Everybody has the same advantages in the sport as far as StatCast is concerned. You can see who hits the ball hard. You can see who has good spin rate on their breaking balls and their fastballs. But to find the guys to execute it as beautifully as they're able to do for A.J. Hinch, their manager, is remarkable. I've never seen as many guys with as many swing and miss pitches.
Well,
on one staff.
We'll see how long they're able to keep up this pace. It is a very long season, which eventually gets every team.
They're going to need another starter or 2 because their bullpen's starting to log a lot of innings.
Yep, that's a good point. And tonight with Morton, they figured because he didn't go deep in the games, they'll have to use him again, that bullpen.
Right.
2-2 on Marlin Gonzalez. Jose Altuve waiting on deck.
There's their general manager, Jeff Luhnow. He's watching the game from the seats tonight. A couple of nights ago, we took a shot of him. He was up in his booth. And some of your general managers like to sit down in the stands and watch their pitchers.
Missed inside, 3-2.
Daniel at 52 pitches already, and we're in the 3rd. He does not have 1 out yet.
He has given up a couple of singles. Walked a batter in the 1st as well. Got him, strike 3. Gonzalez did not agree with the call. 1 out. Time for a game break now with John Keating. Well, Beltran, borderline Hall of Famer. Pujols, for sure a Hall of Famer. And we've seen Carlos in this series. He's got numbers that'll probably get him there too. But Albert Pujols, in the twilight of what has been a spectacular career.
No one has driven in more runs in the American League since the 2016 season began. Albert Pujols is #1. Nobody's driven in more than Albert.
And a couple of years ago, many people thought he was done.
Yeah.
Well, not done, but
close to being done.
Close to being done because the numbers were down. He had that foot problem.
Huge contract.
Well, let's see if the Tigers can continue to handle Altuve here. He hadn't done a whole lot in the series. RBI doubled in the 1st game. Lines one to left. Right by Romine. That's going to go all the way to the wall. That's why you get a run in. Springer going to be held at 3rd, and Altuve has a double.
This was an absolute seed off the bat of Jose Altuve for his 10th double of the season. Romine didn't move until this ball was past him. I mean, he killed it.
Altuve has been on base now in 18 straight games.
This Houston Astros offense, they just keep applying the pressure on you.
Here's Evan Gattis.
And Tigers are conceding the run in the infield. Anything on the ground, they'll give up the 1 run for the out.
Well, Menards brings you the big money encounter. Tigers pitching with runners in scoring position. see where it was in April and where it is in May. There's a marked improvement in really all three of those categories. They will lean on that right here with 2 on and 1 out. Last time Norris got in on the hands of Gaddis and got him to ground back to the mound. This time he lines one to left field, right at Upton. Catch is made. Springer coming home, and he's safe. Both runners will move up. It's a sac fly for Evan Gaddis. Another hard hit ball, but right at Justin Upton.
And Springer immediately went back to tag as soon as that ball was thrown home. And Altuve, and once he saw the ball go all the way home, he simply got over to third base.
So the catcher's interference started the inning, and Gaddis drives him home with a sac fly. Tying run at third now with 2 outs. 19th RBI for Gaddis. Beltran 0 for 1, struck out in the first. Ground ball left side, easy hop there for Romine. Beltran is out, and that'll end the inning. Astros get a run. We played 3.
For just the 12th time all season at Minute Maid Park. You know, Brad Ausmus was saying earlier today his advice to the guys would be hit the ball in the air and toward left field. Of course, they have the short porch and left. Brad also decided to scrap BP today. He said he wanted to, you know, try to do something to help get the bats going. So he decided not to do on-field BP and give the guys a little rest. He said he felt like, he joked, you know, he felt like the guys had used up all their hits in BP over the last couple of games. Maybe that's why they didn't have it in game. So he said if we score a bunch of runs tonight, we'll probably scrap BP tomorrow. We're off to a good start.
Johnny, how long did it take you to get up there?
When was the last time I talked to you?
You're up there with all your friends.
No, it's nice, man. Honestly, you know, like these games obviously in Houston, being able to be out here in the open air, so it's nice.
All right, Johnny, thanks, buddy. And Justin Upton bouncing out. Johnny King sitting with all his friends up there.
I wonder if Johnny King got his Fitbit on. Boy, he racking up some steps today.
He's at about 20,000 steps right now.
Charlie Morton, man, he is still just pounding that fastball inside on some of these right-handers. He really got in the kitchen on that last fastball of Justin Upton.
But here's Mikey Matuk, who bounced out his first at bat. 2-1 ball game. Tigers have the lead. Bender drops outside 1-0.
In 9 starts this year, his average velocity on his fastball has been 96 miles an hour. That's up 2 miles per hour from last year.
I'm telling you, it really is impressive, and they were making a big deal out of it in spring training. But now my question is, I mean, the Astros take a chance here on signing a guy that had 4 really big surgeries in his career.
Oh my goodness.
In on his hands there, and that's going to be a 6-3 rollout.
We've heard that sound too much already tonight.
2 gone.
He's just tough to pick up. I mean, he throws a really nice, easy wind-up, and his 2-seam fastball is just exploding in on the hands of these right-handers. Look at it run in on the hands.
Yet another ground ball out for the right-hander Morton.
He doesn't throw many breaking balls to the right-handers, though. I mean, most of his curveballs he's thrown tonight to the left-handed batters, whether it be Victor, or whether it be Romine or Avila.
Romine walked in his first at bat. Since 2011, Charlie Morton has had surgery on both hips, his elbow, and his hamstring. And yet, the Astros felt comfortable enough to give this guy a 2-year deal, especially after an injury cut his season short after 5 starts last year. So they saw something.
They know how to find him. I don't know who's doing their scouting as far as pitchers are concerned, but whoever he is, he's finding a lot of guys that will have swing and miss stuff.
Like that. 1-2-3 inning for Morton. Detroit is brought to you by Bell Tire. For tires and auto service, everybody needs a Bell Tire guy. And by Chevrolet, the most awarded car company 3 years in a row. Back here at Minute Maid Park with the roof open tonight on a spectacular evening here in Houston. Close ball game, 2-1. Tigers have the lead. Daniel Norris back to the mound. And the first one is low and away to Yuli Gurriel. Gurriel, then Bregman, then Aoki. That'll miss inside. Run the count now to 2 balls, no strikes.
And Gurriel must have some very strong hands. Look at where he holds his bat. I mean, the head of the bat is pointed out toward the pitcher. You got to be really strong to get that point of the bat head all the way into the strike zone to do some damage. You don't see guys holding their bats like this anymore.
And there's ball 4 high. 4-pitch walk for Gurriel, leadoff man on. Hey, by the way, the Tigers June digital ballpark pass is your ticket to 10 home games in June. 1 pass, 10 games, only $49.99. All tickets are digitally delivered via your mobile device. Buy yours today at tigers.com/pass. Don't want to see those leadoff walks. Norris has one here in the 4th.
He's had base runners every inning.
Here's Alex Bregman. Way high. 1-0 on Bregman.
And Bregman got himself into a fastball friendly count his first time up. It was a 2-0 count where Norris tried to throw a fastball by him. He singled successfully to left field. He has himself in another really good fastball count here. Chokes up on the bat ever so slightly. Good pitch. And Daniel really starting to feel a lot more comfortable with that changeup and that curveball. And a very nice job by Alex Avila and continuing to call that pitch. That changeup or that breaking ball, that's the pitch you need to get yourself a ground ball, not necessarily the fastball.
Way outside, and now Norris falls behind. Bregman wears the number 2, and growing up he was a Yankees fan. He wears the number 2 in honor of
Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter.
There's quite a few cats in the big leagues that wear number 2 in honor of Derek these days.
Well, the thing with Bregman is he hit a grand slam on Jeter night.
Oh, did he?
In New York. So what an extremely big thrill for Bregman that was. Slap foul.
Troy Tulowitzki wears number 2 in honor as well of the former Yankee captain.
Bregman said as a kid I used to practice that jump hop, that little jump throw that Jeter would do all the time. And he wanted to be just like Derek. His mother was from Long Island, so that's how he became a Yankees fan. Bregman from New Mexico.
Derek did right, didn't he? For 20 years in the big leagues.
He absolutely did. There's a drive in the air toward left field. Upton going back, still going back, looks up, it's against the wall. Gurriel coming to third base. They're going to stop in there, and Bregman has a double. Second and third, nobody out.
That's the second hit of the night for Alex Bregman. His 10th double of the year. It's a 2-2 count, and it's a breaking ball that does not get down toward the back foot of Bregman. It stays up in the strike zone, and he hits it off that wall in left center field.
Upton was able to get it in quickly enough to hold the runner at third. Here's Nori Aoki. Aoki grounded out his first time up.
Aoki's going to be trying to pull the ball towards second base right here, if he can.
Tigers infield playing back. They will concede that run. How about this? 1 for 26.
Yeah, but yet they've won both games.
Yeah.
I mean, usually numbers like that, and you're staring at a couple of losses.
Ball low, 1-1 on Aoki.
I don't think the Tigers have a hit in the series with runners in scoring position.
There's some action in the Tigers pen now. Warwick Saupold warming up.
Saupold pitched in last night's game as well. Up again tonight.
Aoki skies one in the air to left. Upton coming in. Runner will tag. Catch is made. And J-Up will throw it to third base. Sac fly RBI for Nori Aoki, and we're tied at 2. RBI number 7 on the year for Aoki. Go ahead run at second with 1 out, and here is Marisnick. He struck out to end the second. They're going to appeal that he left too soon. And safe is the call. It looked like Upton might have a play at the plate. He decided to throw to third.
I think what happened was that J-Up really had to run hard because of the slice off the bat of Aoki. That when he finally got there, it took him time to stop and gather himself, and he would have had no throw at home, so he decided wisely just to throw it to third.
Ball 1 to Marisnick. So the 2-0 Tigers lead has disappeared. A walk, a double, and a sacrifice fly here in the 4th for Houston. High fly ball left field, shallow. Upton coming on, still coming, and makes the running catch. Boy, Justin had to run a long way to get to that ball.
He's getting his sprints in.
Two gone. That'll bring up Springer. Reached on catcher's interference in the 3rd and scored a run. He also has a single.
I can see why Avila was so upset after that. And Springer really swung late and almost like he swung back toward the glove of Avila. It was an awkward swing. Avila was livid after the fact and should have been.
So Norris here in the 4th inning is about to deliver his 74th pitch of the game. They will bluff the runner back.
With 2 outs, I mean, really no need for Daniel to be all that occupied with Bregman on second. Bregman really can't hurt him right now, but the guy in the batter's box, George Springer, he can hurt Daniel. So it's very important for Daniel and to make sure that his concentration should be executing the next pitch, not Bregman on second. And now all of a sudden you fall behind 1-0 or 2-0, and then you force yourself into throwing George Springer a fastball.
Yeah, and Springer this year, 2-out runners in scoring position over 500.
Really?
538.
Wow.
Here's the 1-0. Popped up right side of the infield for Cabrera, and that'll end the inning. Astros tied up on a sac fly by Aoki. June 3rd, Tigers face the White Sox at 4:10. Be sure to arrive early. The special pregame on-field clinic hosted by Tigers players and coaches. Tigers.com or call 866-66-TIGER. That's always a good deal for the youngsters.
It really is. I mean, you get a chance to learn from the same guys that teach the Tigers major league players on a nightly basis. A lot of knowledge by the Tigers coaches. Get out of here.
Collins has sent one in the air. It looks like it's playable. Man, look at that play by Bregman. He made the catch and walked down the steps. I thought for sure that ball was going back in the seats.
I tried to will it foul. It's nice concentration by Bregman. Took one look down. He knew exactly where he was. He got to the railing and jumped in and walked down the steps, as Mario said.
Here comes Brad Ausmus now. Collins was having a confab with the home plate umpire Hoy.
Right.
There's no doubt the catch was made. Now Collins will walk back to the bench. Pretty good play. Here is Iglesias. Iggy had an infield single, which started the Tigers' rally in the third. They came up with 2 runs in that frame. Oh, 0-1. One ball, 1 strike on Iglesias. Kinsler next. We're in the 5th inning, 2-2. Man, we're talking about how the Astros signed a ground ball pitcher like Morton. They feel they've got a young athletic infield, which really bodes well for a guy that throws a lot of ground balls. He couldn't hold up, went around, strike 3.
Not only does he throw a lot of ground balls, but Dallas Keuchel also throws a lot of ground balls, and even Lance McCullers last night has a very high ground ball rate. He threw Iglesias 3 straight curveballs, and Iglesias really did not get a good look or good swing at either of the 3. He's got a bigger breaking ball against right-handed batters than he does against the left-handers. Against left-handers, it's more of a 12-6 breaking ball. And when he throws a breaking ball to the right-handed batters, as we just watched to Iglesias, it's a lot more east to west movement. The left-hander north to south, downward action. The other guys east to west. There it is. A little slurvier to the righties.
2-0 on Kinsler, who got a double in the third. He's hit safely now in 9 of his last 10.
Ian was sitting on the fastball the last time up inside, got it and turned on it.
Drilled to center field. Ball is hit well. Marisnik going back to the track to make the catch. And a 1-2-3 inning for Charlie Morton. hits, Astros 2 runs on 4 hits, and we go to the bottom of the 5th inning here at Minute Maid Park. Daniel Norris back to the mound. He's got 2, 3, and 4 coming up. Gonzalez and then Altuve and then Gaddis. 75 in the pitch count for Mr. Norris. Gonzalez a strikeout and a walk. Tigers got 2 in the 3rd. The Astros 1 in the 3rd and 1 in the 4th to tie. And that's where we are now here in the 5th. And Gonzalez looks at a strike right down the middle.
And most of Daniel's fastballs today have been 92, 93. And he's been able to command that fastball a whole lot better. Every now and then when he gets up into the mid-90s, and Daniel has a difficult time of commanding that pitch. But today, good command with his heater.
Norris has not had a 1-2-3 inning in this game. Hence the pitch count is up. Daniel by and large though has limited the damage. Ground ball third base side. Nice short hat scoop by Romine for the out.
In case you're just tuning in and wondering where Castellanos is, Brad decided before the game today that Castellanos needed a couple of days off. He made a couple of miscues in last night's game, and every now and then you need a mental day off, but Brad's decided to give him a couple of days off, and I think it bodes well for him. I think he did that a couple of years ago. He gave him a couple of days off, and Castellanos really responded favorably.
Brad also did that with Upton last year.
Yeah, he did.
And it worked because Justin really took off in the second half. Here's Altuve. Castellanos was the only Tiger that had played every game. He had started every game at third base.
He probably needed a little mental break.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Getting back on track offensively and defensively.
Double and a fly ball for Altuve in this game.
And just like the Tigers did not take any batting practice on the field today after the tough travel schedule after the Sunday night game. And Brad decided he needed his guys to just get away from it for a while. Came to the ballpark very late.
You know, it's funny because a lot of times when you look at ball players, you think, well, you got to be ready to go at 7 o'clock every night. But there's so much that goes into preparing every single day. They're at the ballpark around 2, some sooner than that, right. If they need treatment.
Yep.
Extra hitting for guys that want it. You have regular batting practice.
Get your workouts in with your strength and fitness conditioning coach. It's an all-day affair.
High fly ball, shallow left to shortstop Iglesias, and now Upton, and it's Iglesias. Iggy took one peek at Upton, then decided I better catch this ball. 2 up, 2 down. And Norris really needs a 1-2-3 inning here. Daniel has only gone into the 7th inning in 1 start this year, and ironically that was his first start of the year against Boston. He has not pitched into the 7th since. Here's Ryan Gaddis, or Evan Gaddis rather. Sac fly, drove in a run back in the 3rd. Sends a ground ball third base side. Another pick by Romine. There's your 1-2-3 inning. Well, Castellanos getting a mental day off. When we come back, Simo will dissect Nick's swing on the other side of this. All right, guys, thanks. In the meantime, we go to the 6th here. It's going to be Avila to get things started. In a 2-2 ball game, it'll be Avila, Cabrera, and Martinez facing Charlie Morton. There's a strike call.
And Velo's still real nice for Charlie Morton. Every fastball he's thrown, 94, 95, gotten up to 96.
Morton spent 7 years in Pittsburgh, 1 with the Phillies. Ooh, that one just missed.
He loves that bender to the lefties.
2-1. Vila walked in the first, walked in the third. That's why his on base is so high. He's got it played to pull on the infield. Strike called. He got the benefit of the call there on the outer edge. 2-2. Morton right now has had 78. I mentioned he's only gone to 100 pitches 3 times in his 9 starts. Got him. Strike 3. Avila is caught looking. He doesn't like it. A few parting shots for James Hoy. Hey, Saturday, June 3rd at noon, former Tigers pitcher Jack Morris signing autographs at the D Shop at Comerica Park. If you'd like tickets, visit tigers.com/autographs. Or here's the phone number, 313-471-2064. Old Jack.
Yep. And we gave you some numbers earlier on Charlie Morton. First time through the batting order, the batting average is 176, so he gets off to really good starts. Second time through, it goes up 100 points to 286. The third time around, 358, and that's where the Tigers are sitting right now. So usually his manager doesn't even allow him to face that many lineups third time through, but he's leaving him out there tonight.
Fell behind 2-0. His teammates got him a couple of runs to tie it up. Miggy sends a ground ball to short, scooting over to his right, Gonzalez. 2 gone, another ground ball out. That'll bring Victor Martinez.
I got 9 ground ball outs already.
I believe you.
And 2 double plays. So he's been quite the ground ball specialist here tonight.
Victor has 2 of those ground balls and 1 of those double plays. Shifting to the right side against Martinez. Here's the comparison between Norris and Morton. Soft line drive, base hit left field. A 2-out single for Victor. And that'll give Upton an opportunity. Jalp is now 0 for 8 in the series. Ground ball strikeout in this game. May certainly has not been as good as April was for Justin. He was a .290 hitter in the month of April, but only 169 coming in here in the month of May. We could change that right here. Strike 1, right at the knees. Upton Rod seemingly has been one of those players in his career that has been somewhat streaky. Now the thing is, when he gets on a good streak, look out.
He can carry you.
And for weeks at a time.
Yep, there's no doubt about that.
The 1-1.
Unfortunately, he's like most power hitters too, though, that when they do start to struggle, they do start to swing and miss, and they do leave the strike zone. He's got himself in a good hitting count right here.
Ground ball up the middle. Gonzalez to his left. And Upton is out to retire the side. No runs, a hit, one man left. Tigers baseball tonight presented by Bell Tire.
Talked with Daniel Norris before his start, and he said, looking back to his last one against the Texas Rangers, there were some good signs and also some bad signs coming out of that one. Did give up the 5 runs on 7 hits, including a couple of home runs in that start. But he said, listen, with home runs, as a pitcher, you understand you're going to give those up. But mentally, the one thing he's trying to do is be more consistent with everything he's got going. He says sometimes he's got great free fuel for his pitches. He'll have a string of them going, then all of a sudden he doesn't have it. So mentally, he says, I need to eliminate that and not let one pitch dictate the rest of the pitches that follow, especially when there's a negative connotation to it. So Daniel Norris, again, he's locked in, says he feels a little bit closer with each start he's made. He feels like he's getting back to having that control and command of his really good stuff, guys.
All right, Johnny, and Rod, is consistency more mental than physical, or vice versa?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think Daniel understands that he pretty much has had one bad inning in just about every single start. It's going to be difficult for him to get over that hurdle, but once he gets over that hurdle, I think we're going to see a different, more confident pitcher. There's no question he has the stuff to win, and I mean win big at this level.
Swing and a miss. And Beltran down on strikes. Strikes him out for the second time tonight.
He got Beltran the first time up on a really slow breaking ball, about 76 miles an hour. This time he goes up top, puts forcing fastball right around the letters, and that Beltran could not catch up to.
4 strikeouts now for Norris. Well, he had a 1-2-3 fifth. We'll see if he can build on that here in the 6th. Gurriel looks at a strike. That's fouled back out of play. Gurriel had a walk to get things started in the 4th and eventually scored the game's tying run.
And you have to make sure, if you're Daniel here, you cannot make this too good a pitch to Gurriel in the 0-2 count.
Made sure of that. He bounced it in front of the plate.
That's right.
1-2. $90 now for Daniel. Did he go? Dana DeMuth has the quickest check swing sign ever.
It was quick.
His hands barely come out of his pocket and gives you the safe side.
Alligator arms.
2-2 on Yuli Gurriel. That'll get foul. I had a chance to talk to Andy Mota before the game today. Manny Mota's son, who is he's a former player, but he's an agent now. He is Gurriel's agent. And he is real excited about the opportunity. They got him to sign a 5-year deal here in Houston. And you don't normally see that, Rod, from guys that are 32.
No, you don't. Not guys that have never played in the big leagues or guys that have never played stateside.
Exactly.
But I think the reputation of Gurriel was one that a lot of teams had a lot of interest in him. Even though at age 32 he still has a young body, and a team like the Houston Astros with payroll constraints, they can afford a guy like him, or instead of going out and trying to bring in a bigger name free agent, somebody that's already in the States.
Again, the 2-2 ground ball third base side. Romine's been busy, throws out another.
Making every play too.
2 away now, time for a game break, and John Keating. Thanks, Skeets. We'll keep an eye on that game. Right now, Minnesota at 25-18 with their win today. Cleveland 24-20. Fouled out of play, 0-1 on Bregman. Big night tonight so far for Bregman. 2 hits, stolen base, and a really good defensive play. Came in batting .248. The Astros now starting to see their draft picks come to fruition. They've got, of course, Springer, who was a high draft choice, Correa, and Bregman was the number 2 overall pick a couple of years ago. He got to the big leagues quickly. Swing and a miss, and Norris strikes him out. 1-2-3 inning. Well, Charlie Morton coming back to the mound. He tries to emulate a pretty good pitcher in Roy Halladay. A copycat delivery. We'll explain next. Twos as we go to the top of the 7th here at Minute Maid Park. Tigers led 2-0. Astros got a couple of runs in 2 separate innings. Ground ball hit the 3rd foul off the bat of Mikey Matuk. Matuk and then Romine and Collins for the Tigers here in the 7th. We mentioned that Castellanos getting a couple of days off. J.D. Martinez also out of the lineup tonight. Brad has wanted to get him a day off. They've really pushed him hard since he came off the disabled list.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised he has played as many days in a row. But when you're as hot as J.D. was, it was impossible for Brad to take him out of the lineup.
Exactly what Ausmus said before the game today. He said with each passing day we just let J.D. go because he would have big game after big game.
He's getting ready to pinch hit at some point in time tonight, though.
Nice pick by Bregman at third, and Matuk is out one away.
Let's take you back a few years. Roy Halladay's last year in the big leagues was 2010. He won a Cy Young that year, but Morton has kind of patterned his delivery after Roy Halladay, and why not? It's a real simple delivery, a very small step back. Both guys were about 6 feet 5 inches. Both guys with large wingspans. Both guys just kind of sling the baseball up there and fall off toward the right side of the left side of the mound. So some similarities there between the two, and Morton's kind of taking his game to a whole nother level this year.
There's a ground ball up the middle. Gonzalez, the shortstop. And there are two gone.
And since the change, now here's what his Morton's numbers have gone to. And he's gotten a whole lot more starts. The winning percentage has gone way up. The ERA way down. The whip way down as well. And the ground ball percentage has gone up quite a bit as well. So since that change in delivery, he's gotten a whole lot more action in the strike zone and lots of ground balls and lots of strikeouts.
Sometimes you will see deliveries that are similar, but that really was almost exact.
Yeah, both guys are really tall too, and the taller guys these days, and we're starting to see it more and more, guys just have these really simple deliveries. Andrew Miller comes to mind as well, the hybrid reliever of the Cleveland Indians.
We tied up Collins there, 0-2. Tyler pop up and a strikeout. Tigers got 2 runs in the third, but nothing since.
Ooh, Morton thought he had strike 3. James Hoy, he's missing a pretty good game back there tonight. He really is. He's been all over the place, man. He really has. I didn't mean to say it, but he has. The strike zone has not been good tonight.
Shane Green tuning up. And he went around, strike 3. They're calling Collins out. Collins said, let him go around.
Get some help, James.
Man. 1-2-3 inning for Morton. Coming up, the Consumers Energy 7th inning stretch. Tonight it is a 2-2 game. Daniel Norris 6 innings, 1 earned run and 5 strikeouts. And the Tigers runs on a wild pitch, a double play, and 2 sac flies. All the runs in the game, I should say. So neither team really doing it offensively.
You know, we talked about Daniel at the top of the show and the importance of him really showing up here tonight against this very good offense of the Houston Astros. And he's done that. He's kept his team in the game. And he's out there doing something he has not done very often this year. That's pitching to the 7th inning.
Only the 2nd time this year. A slow roller toward Kinsler. And on 1 pitch, Aoki's out of there. It's 10 straight retired by Norris. Fans, RBI Baseball 2017 returns with fast-paced pick-up-and-play MLB action, packed with all your favorite MLB teams, players, ballparks, and much more. Get RBI Baseball today for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and mobile devices. Learn more at RBIGame.com. That's going to be it for Norris. We've got ourselves a wall side windows pitching change. We'll step aside in a 2-2 game.
Pitch by pitch, Daniel Norris threw a total of 98 pitches. 60 of those were strikes. At the beginning of the game, Avila led him beautifully with a lot of breaking balls and change-ups that Daniel was able to execute. And then later in the game, they start going upstairs with a fastball. It was firm at 94, 95, and got some swings and misses up top. Real nice job tonight by Daniel Norris, pitching into the 7th inning.
Exactly what the Tigers needed tonight. Norris's numbers look like this: 6 1/3, 4 hits, 1 earned run.
And the ace approves. Justin liked it.
That's all that matters, huh?
Yeah.
Here is Marisnik. And Shane Green delivers inside 1-0.
And Shane Green has been throwing the ball really well. Now he checks in with a 1.29 ERA, pitching in his 22nd game of the year. In his last 4 games, 9 strikeouts and 1 walk with that power fastball in the mid-90s. Shane also cuts the fastball, will throw you a breaking ball. He threw a changeup when he was a starter, but doesn't throw many changeups in the role now that he's pitching in.
His month of May has been filthy. 0.77 ERA this month.
It's a bingo now.
Bingo. Swing and a miss.
There's that high-octane heater. He's got another gear. And his 94 looks like it's about 97.
Springer on deck. We're in the bottom of the 7th, 2-2 game. Didn't go.
It's a nice tight slider. At 84, that thing stayed on the same fastball plane until like the last 10 feet. And then took a huge left turn to the outside corner.
swing and a miss to strike him out. 95 up at the letters.
And Daniel Norris was able to exploit that same weakness of some of the Houston Astros batters here tonight. Fastball up top and it swung right through.
Here is Springer. Norris ended the ball game by retiring the last 10 in a row he faced. Springer on base twice in this game. Strike one. In fact, Morton's been on a roll of his own. 25 of the last 26 have gone down. Outside, that slides away. 1 ball, 1 strike. Springer's single, reaching on a catcher's interference and a pop-up. High fly ball, right center field. Collins and Mata. Collins. And a 1-2-3 7th inning. We go to the 8th. Tigers baseball presented by Bell Tire. Detroit and the community since 1849. Your Metro Detroit Chevy dealers. Visit ChevyDetroit.com. See why Chevy drives the Motor City. Wallside Windows. We can do that. We are the factory. And by Tim Hortons. Purchase coffee at Tim Hortons on May 31st and send a deserving child to camp. Nighttime is settling in here at Minute Maid Park in Houston. The roof opened tonight for the first time in this series. Got a new pitcher now and a Wallside Windows pitching change. Chris Davinsky.
And we saw Davinsky a couple of nights ago, and we talked about the fact he's got one of the best changeups in all of baseball for a right-hander. He pitched 2 2/3 innings that night, did not give up a hit to the Tigers batters.
Iglesias infield single and a run scored tonight. Pulled off the glove of the third baseman Bregman down the line. Iglesias will round the bag and go for second. And he is in with a stand-up double here in the 8th.
It's a nice job here on a breaking ball. Iglesias gets out in front of it, right over the glove of Bregman, and by the time it's ran down by Aoki, Iglesias standing at second base. And Tigers in business. And well, you know you're going to get that changeup now from Davinsky. 41% of his pitches thrown this season have been changeups. It's obviously the highest for any pitch in baseball. That many.
Kinsler a double in 3 at bats tonight. Go ahead run at second, nobody out. Ian looks at a strike.
This is where a guy like Davinsky gets tough. He also has 46 strikeouts, and that's the most of any reliever in baseball. And he does it with a changeup. So if you're Ian, you know you got to be sitting on a changeup, and everybody else coming up is going to get a changeup.
Ground ball up the middle. That's going to be a base hit. They're going to hold him in third base. Iglesias is stopped there. Throw is going to overshoot the catcher, and Kinsler will take second, and that's a huge mistake by Marisnick.
Great base running by Ian Kinsler. Dave Clark respecting the fact that Marisnick in center field has a great arm, so he didn't want to run into an out, not with the guys coming up. Kinsler got a fastball up, but look at Ian Kinsler on first base. He saw the ball come out of the hand of the center fielder Marisnick, and he never really broke stride, just continued to get himself in the scoring position.
So it's second and third down, nobody out.
So he pitched 2 1/3 innings a couple of days ago. They did not get one hit. Now they first couple of batters to go up against Chris Davinsky have both reached safely.
Avila trying to cash in, the infield coming in, even though they are shifting to the right side.
I mean, really, with a runner on third base, they're going to give Avila this much room on the left side of the infield. I mean, look at this room.
They don't care.
I mean, anything here is an RBI.
They are daring him just to push the ball the other way. The 0-1. Tigers in great shape here. Second and third, nobody out. 6 total hits now for the Tigers offense.
That changeup, it's a wicked pitch. He's got the kind of changeup that if you're a hitter, you know it's coming, but you still cannot hit it. You just can't. It's a circle change. And Vila has hit quite a few balls to left field already this year. And that's where your concentration should be, trying to hit something right where the shortstop should be. Strangely enough, as good as the changeup that Davinsky has, he threw Iglesias a breaking ball. He doubled, and he threw Ian Kinsler a fastball up in the strike zone. He singled, but he's given Avila and back-to-back-to-back changeups.
Ground ball and a diving stop. Altuve. That's actually the first baseman, Gurriel. They'll get the out, but the run will score. Iglesias comes in. They had the infield pulled in, but Gurriel left his feet. RBI for Avila. He gets it done. 3-2.
They're going to walk Miguel Cabrera. It's a nice play by Gurriel and a nice read by Jose Iglesias. It's the right move if you're A.J. Hinch. You play for the double play off the bat of Victor Martinez.
Avila gets his 19th RBI. Two on now with one out. The intentional walk to Miguel Cabrera.
And Victor has the same opportunity to do the exact same thing that we were talking about Avila. And with them shifting Victor heavily to the right side of the infield, they've opened up and pretty much the entire left side of the infield. And Victor has gotten a lot of hits in that direction this year already.
Double play ball, ground out single. The single went the opposite way for Victor. Tigers get their first run since the third when they got a couple.
And they're doing it against one of the better bullpens in all of baseball.
Ground ball right side. Gurriel sprawling play goes off his glove. They'll throw to second one. That's all they get. Another run to score. Kinsler is in, and it's now 4-2 Tigers. RBI for Martinez. 4-2.
Last couple of runs scored. They ain't necessarily been killing the ball, but they'll take it.
They will take it indeed. It's been a little bit
any way they
unorthodox.
can.
Here is Upton now.
I cannot remember the last time I watched Justin Upton take this many fastballs in a game. If he's taken one fastball for a strike today, he's taken 4.
A couple of ground balls and a strikeout for Upton, and a wave and a miss. Davinsky came in for Morton, who had retired 14 the last 15 he faced. The leadoff double by Iglesias got it rolling for the Tigers. Popped him up. Third base side for Bregman, and that'll end the inning. Tigers scored 2. We go to the bottom of the 8th.
Hooked up, that would be Marwin Gonzalez and Shane Green, and Green punched him out through him. Every single pitch was a breaking ball inside, and then finally started one off the plate outside, caught the outside corner, and nice frame job by Avila, and Green was fired up.
Shane back to the hill here in the 8th. He's got Gonzalez, Altuve, and Gaddis.
Let's see how he attacks him this time around.
Gonzalez, a walk, strikeout, ground out. And a ball high to the shortstop.
He's going to start him off and try to pitch to him the same exact way he did a couple of nights ago with breaking balls.
Astros did not start Carlos Correa tonight. He would be available to pinch hit, we understand, if indeed A.J. Hinch wanted to use him. Fouled straight back. Tigers bullpen improvement in the month of May has really come in real big numbers when you look at the ERA.
And walks per 9 have gone down. They were walking nearly 5 batters per 9 innings in the month of April.
2-1 on Gonzalez. Shane, a strikeout and a fly out in the 7th after Norris got the first batter. Well, the closer warming up, Justin Wilson.
Looking like Brad might want to use him for a 4-out save tonight if he has to. Or else he would not be up right now.
Here's the 2-1. Slice toward left field. Upton is on the run. Jay Up. Leaping catch.
Look out, Jay Up.
What a play by Justin Upton. That ball would have banged off the wall. Would have been an easy double. But Upton runs it down.
Upton's got the mindset right now that most outfielders have. When you're not necessarily swinging the bat all that well and you're not getting a whole lot of hits, guess what? Anything hit to my direction, you're not going to get any hits either. So fine play by Justin. He took a direct route. That ball was over his head. He reached up and the ball landed in his glove. Gonzalez has been hitting the ball hard all series, hasn't he?
Hanged a couple off the wall and left. That one looked like a sure double.
It sure did. It's a big play.
Here is Altuve now with 1 out. High fly ball, shallow left. Here comes Upton. A more routine play for Jay Up. 2 gone. Now Evan Gattis. That needs 1 more out of Shane Green here. Then he can bring Wilson on in the 9th.
I think he had Wilson ready just in case Josh Reddick stepped off that bench. And he would use Wilson.
Gattis knocked in a run with a sac fly in the 3rd. He got home the first Houston run of the night.
And talked about how they've been pitching Gattis all night. He stands over in a crouched position and his hands are very low. So you are taught to throw the fastball right at the hands because the hands are resting comfortably over the plate.
Ooh,
nasty.
Had it buckled.
Did he though?
0-2 on Gattis. Jankowski in the bullpen for Houston. The 0-2 came inside. Tigers grabbed the lead with 2 runs in the top of the 8th. Two and 2. Back end of the Tigers bullpen, still waiting for Frankie Rodriguez to get straightened out. He's shown some signs recently, but in the interim, Shane Green has stepped in, done a really nice job toward the back end. Ground ball to 3rd. Romine gobbles up another. And it's going to be a 1-2-3 inning for the Houston Astros in the 8th. We go to the 9th. Score as we go to the top of the 9th inning. And the Tigers trying to win game 3 in this series. Jankowski is making his major league debut, and he throws his first pitch in for a strike to Mikey Matuk.
He was pitching very well in the minor leagues. In 17 games in AAA Fresno, he was 1-1 with a 1.42 ERA, and he was holding right-handed batters to a 1.46 batting average. So, and Jankowski was dealing down in the minors.
Jankowski was selected for the minor leagues for this series. A.J. Hinch said he brought him up here because he's got a really good slider, which he thought would be effective against the right-handed Tiger hitters.
34th round draft selection of the 2012 draft.
Here's the 0-2. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Matuk has put the ball on the ground 3 times tonight.
With that new 10-day disabled list, you can manipulate your way into bringing up guys to pitch against certain teams and different things like that. I don't think the commissioner had that in mind when he implemented that rule, but teams have really been able to maneuver their way around that 10-day disabled list.
He strikes out swinging, 1 gone here in the 9th, and Jankowski's first major league hitter goes down on strikes. Going to bring on Romine, who is over 2 with a walk in this game, but he's made a bevy of plays down at third base.
He's been busy at third. Jankowski, 28 years old, and making his major league debut.
One ball and 2 strikes. Infield play to pull on Romine. And he got a piece of that one to stay alive. Tigers grab the lead in the 8th on an RBI ground out by Avila and fielder's choice ground ball by Victor Martinez. Has not been fancy tonight for the ball club, but they lead 4-2. Ball high from Jankowski.
Yeah, Tigers have 4 runs in the game, but yet still do not have a hit with a runner in scoring position in the series.
Here's the 2-2. Swing and a miss.
Is that slider?
Well, Jankowski strikes out his first 2 big league hitters. Hey, Saturday, June 3rd, Tigers face the White Sox at 4:10. Be sure to arrive early for the special pregame on-field clinic hosted by Tigers players and coaches. Visit Tigers.com or call 866-66-TIGER. Learn from the best. Tyler Collins now with 2 outs. Sink low and away. Beltran, Gurriel, and Bregman do up when we get to the bottom of the 9th. In there is strike called, 1-1. There's Justin Wilson. He'll be coming into the ball game. Collins rolls it foul, 1-2, and that one will leave a mark. Missed a little bit outside. 2-2 on Collins. Should he reach? Iglesias next. Fouled away. Tyler again in one of those slumps. He is 0 for 3 in this ball game.
I think he came in 0 for 15 and 0 for 15 slide.
Yeah, he did. So he's back up to 0 for 18 now. He had that 0 for 30 that he busted out of with that 2-homer game. And again, the 2-2. Ground ball, fair ball inside the bag. That'll be extra bases. Collins on his way to second. He might go for 3 here. He's going around the bag. He's coming to third. And the throw is held up. It's a triple for Collins. First one of the year for Tyler. That would be a huge run to get in here with 2 outs.
A little breathing room for Justin Wilson.
Here's Iglesias to try and deliver. Iggy looks at a strike right at the letters 0-1.
Iggy's heard about that slider. He's up there looking for one of those sliders until he gets to 2 strikes.
Two. Big game tonight for Jose. 2 hits, 2 runs scored.
That was good to see, because he had been struggling with the bat lately.
Yeah, the average had dipped below 200. He came in at 195. 1-2.
And sooner or later this Tigers offense is going to take off. They really have not gotten it going collectively as a group this year. Certain guys have gotten hot at a time, and they really haven't gotten it going as a group.
Yeah, his hands that time, and Iglesias fought it off.
I mean, Miggy, Victor, Justin, Castellanos, Kinsler, up and down. I mean, you have a lot of guys that really are just not up to where they're back to their baseball cards say they should be, but they will get there.
Here's the 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Tigers, because the way their team is constructed with a lot of power hitters, tend to go into slumps. I think a little bit more so, don't you think, Rod?
I agree. They don't have the table setter kind of baseball players, guys that will bunt, guys that will hit and run, guys that do some of the small things to win a game. They don't have that type of team. Although they have a couple of guys that can play that kind of baseball. Iglesias, Romine, Matuk, all can play small ball. Machado. They pay him to drive in runs.
Romine, a nice job today filling in for Castellanos at third base. And again, the 2-2. 3-2 on Iglesias.
Sometimes it's the best thing for you to get a mental day off. And like Castellanos is going to get today and tomorrow. You don't take any batting practice. You don't pick your glove up. You just kind of chill. Just sit back and relax and watch what's going on around you.
Here's the 3-2. Fouled away.
And when I was coaching and managing, and when I first started my coaching career as a hitting instructor, when I had a guy that would struggle for 4 or 5 days in a row, I would say, but you know what? No BP for you today. Just go sit down and relax and don't do anything. And believe it or not, guys start to do better just by getting away from it for a day.
Well, I guess the secret in when Brad decides to make moves like this is to decide when to do it. I mean, Nick had played every game this year, and you're thinking, well, he might get it going tonight, and he doesn't. Well, he might get it going tomorrow, and he doesn't.
Yeah, I think they wanted to have all their horses in this particular series, and rightfully so. You're going up against the team with the best record in baseball, but it got to a point where Brad said, you know what? And regardless of who we're playing, I've got to give him a day off.
Meanwhile, Iglesias putting together a pretty good at bat here against Jankowski. He had struck out the first 2 batters, then Collins tripled, and now Iglesias fouling off pitch after pitch. Fly ball in the air toward left field. That ball is hit well. Aoki going back. He looks up, and that ball is off the wall. A run will score. Iglesias has a double, and now they're calling it a homer. It's a two-run shot for Iggy, who had stopped at second, and they give him all four. Boy, is that a huge knock. A two-run shot with 2 outs by Iglesias.
Iglesias has had a great day today.
I would say so. Single, double homer. Second home run of the season for Iglesias. And the breathing room the Tigers needed. Here is Kinsler. That's fouled away, 0-1.
Here's our 1-800-CALL-SAM call of the game. Iglesias finally got something up in the strike zone he could handle. It was a four-seam fastball, and it looked like a fan reached over into play, and that's why he was given the home run. It's the second home run of the year for Jose.
That was an 11-pitch at bat. Big rip there by Kinsler.
I will say this much. The guys have swung the bats better today. I mean, they've barreled up a lot more balls today than they did in the first 2 games of the series.
Well, they have, and that's saying something considering Morton retired 14 of the last 15 he faced. But the bullpen, which has been so good for Houston, unable to hold it. Kinsler's out. That'll end the inning. We go to the bottom of the 9th. Tigers have a 4-run lead. By Iglesias, and the lead is 4 now. Last call for the Astros. We go to the bottom of the 9th here in Houston, and in the wall side windows pitching change, Justin Wilson.
Not a safe situation for the Tigers' new closer, but Brad Ausmus's had him hot, so why not put him in the game? He's been awesome this year, and with that power fastball getting up to 98 miles an hour, good breaking ball, an occasional changeup. Justin Wilson is probably pitching as well right now as he's ever pitched in the big league.
He will face Beltran to get things started here in the bottom of the 9th. Beltran, Gurriel, and Bregman. Swing and a miss.
He's been getting a lot of swing and misses on that 94 to 97 mile per hour four-seam fastball. And most of them have been up in the strike zone.
Been a tough night for Beltran. He's 0 for 3, 2 punch outs. One ball and 1 strike. Wilson replaces Green, who was good again tonight. He retired all 5 that he faced. Two and 1. Beltran now 1 for 11 in the series. Popped up foul. This will find the seats. Tigers came into this game 2 under the 500 mark. We've got that series coming up in Chicago after this one is completed tomorrow night. 4 games over the weekend in Chicago, then it's on to KC. Popped up first base side for Cabrera, and 1 gone. Here's Chevrolet's most dependable player, Justin Wilson, among relievers this year in strikeout rate. Got some flamethrowers on that list.
Yes, indeed. Kenley Jansen, James Hoyt.
All 6 have been retired by the Tigers' pen so far. Yuli Gurriel.
So Daniel retired the last 11 that he saw, and the bullpens retired the last 6.
Last 10 for Norris. There's a ball low. 2 balls, no strikes. And then 5 by Green. Wilson trying to put the finishing touches on this one. Here's the 2-0. Popped up. Left side of the infield, Iglesias. That'll nestle into his glove for round number 2. Well, here's the upcoming matchup presented by Wallside Windows, and tomorrow in the finale, Tigers and Verlander going.
And Mike Fiers off to a sluggish start this year with the ERA at 5.14, 36 strikeouts for Fiers, and a 1-2 record. And with the Tigers hold on to win this one, it'll be a big game for Verlander tomorrow to get out of here with a split. Oh boy, will it be big to get out of here with a split.
Here is Bregman. He hammers one in the air deep to left field. That ball is way back, and that ball is gone. Home run for Bregman. A 2-out solo shot, his 3rd hit of the night. And the Astros not ready to go home just yet. Tigers pitching had retired 17 straight before that.
And Bregman went up there looking for the 4-seam fastball on top of the strike zone, and he went up and climbed the ladder to get it and hit it right over the out-of-town scoreboard. In the choo-choo train, chugging on down the track.
Here's Aoki. Ball 1. Aoki in the ball game, sac fly, knocking in a run. Otherwise, 0 for 2. 2-0. Shinoki reached Marisnik, the number 9 hitter, waiting on deck.
You also mentioned they have Correa on their bench that they want to pinch hit.
Slap foul. Don't know if Correa will be back in the lineup tomorrow. It's a possibility. We know JD probably will be. Nick will be off again tomorrow. Correa's been at the ballpark. Doesn't look like he's going to enter this game at this point. A little bit outside. Now it's gone to 3-1. Slice to third under the glove of Romine into left field. And Aoki keeps it going with a 2-out single. Well, the Astros not quitting yet. They need one more base runner to bring the tying run to the plate.
Romine has made every play, and that's been hit in his direction today, but that one hit sharply off the bat of the left-hander and got right underneath the glove of Andrew. And something this Houston Astros team has been very good at, and that's scoring runs late in games. And for whatever reason, they have a knack of scoring late against some of your better relievers in the sport.
Their run differential late has been one of the best. Tigers, conversely, have been one of the lowest in the major late in games. Here's the 0-1. One ball and one strike. The ninth inning is a different bird. It's just that simple. And Wilson finding that out, although he's performed well so far in his opportunities. Final 3 outs are tough to get. Way outside, and the count now goes 2-1.
Because a lot of times you look over your shoulder and there's nobody behind you. You're the guy.
Well, you don't want it to go any farther because that guy on deck has power, and he represents the tying run.
Yeah, he's homered 9 times already this year. That would be George Springer.
Missed again, and the count goes to 3-1 on Marisnik, the number 9 hitter. Fly ball in the air toward left field. Should do it, and it's caught by Matuk to end the ball game. 6-3 the final score. Now we'll send you to the Coliseum Studios. John Keating standing by with Tigers Live postgame.